Today, Homeworthy is taking you inside 4 remarkable Boston homes. First, we're in Beacon Hill, where Melissa Fetter, founder of Beacon Hill Books Café, welcomes us into her 1800s home, shaped by a love of literature, travel, and community.
I love to point out is the little itty-bitty painting over the fireplace is a replica of the Rembrandt that was stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum 30 years ago.
In the quaint town of Wellesley, designer and author Erin Gates shares her 1865 home, where bold color and pattern meet classic architecture.
This corner, I have this chair that I bought maybe 15 years ago that I reupholstered and has been in every house I think I've had. And it's just one of those classic, great antique finds that stay with you forever.
And back in the city, Whitney Talsma, founder of Oliver James Interiors, tours her 1814 farmhouse, blending original details with vintage finds and garden views.
We use this room all the time. It truly is the heart of our house. My husband loves to cook and the kids love to sit at the island. We have breakfast here every morning, coffee, tea, that kind of thing. And even though it's tiny, it really packs a great punch. It's just so charming.
And then we meet artist Danika Herrick, who opens up her beautiful pattern-rich home where she mixes New England tradition with Palm Beach influence.
I've been working on painting the Salem Harbor, and it's in process, but having all the houses that we've lived in, since we've lived in probably a total of 10 together, and all like the areas that are special for us painted onto this table.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Today on Homeworthy, we're heading to Beacon Hill, one of Boston's most historic and storied neighborhoods, to meet Melissa Fetter, the visionary behind Beacon Hill Books Café. She welcomes us into her beautiful 1800s home, a stunning blend of charm and contemporary flair, and a space filled with art and treasures she's collected over the years.
I want to point out I've got 2 of these globes which were made by the globe maker, Gilman Jocelyn, who built the building that the bookstore is housed in. And so these would have been made in that building in the mid-1800s.
Just down the street, Melissa has brought another dream to life, Beacon Hill Books Café. Step inside and you're instantly transported, as if wandering into the pages of a storybook or discovering a hidden shop in Europe.
Our logo, which is a squirrel, then came to life in the form of a book that we commissioned about a squirrel named Paige that lives in the bookstore at night and goes to the public garden during the day to read stories, or rather to tell stories that they've read the night before. We also have a place where Paige lives, and you'll see that this is all hand constructed. It's meant to be items that are found items that a squirrel might find and then use in their home. The bed is made out of twigs. The top of the table and the seat are the Bon Maman jam jar tops. One fun thing that I love to point out is the little itty-bitty painting over the fireplace is a replica of the Rembrandt that was stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum 30 years ago.
Whimsical and inviting, it's more than a bookstore. It's a neighborhood treasure. Between its cozy nooks, story-filled shelves, and the charm of an afternoon tea, it stands as a true love letter to Boston.
This is my favorite part of the bookstore, and this is what we call our aesthetics room. And everything in here relates to architecture, interior design, landscape, gardening, art history, fashion, and art monographs.
Today, she's welcoming us into both her home and her bookstore, 2 Boston gems filled with vision, charm, and a touch of wonder. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, welcome Homeworthy. I'm Melissa Fetter. Welcome to my home on Beacon Hill. Hi, I'm Melissa Fetter, and I own and started Beacon Hill Books and Café in Beacon Hill in Boston, and we're now sitting in my townhouse, also on Beacon Hill. So I have always loved Beacon Hill. In fact, lived here in a tiny little apartment when I was in my 20s, when my husband was in graduate school in the mid 80s. So it was very fun to come back to Boston, specifically Beacon Hill where we had lived. And we bought this townhouse, which had been lovingly renovated by the previous owner, but I've had a lot of fun adding layers, wallpapers and drapery and just extra flourishes that I think make the space more welcoming. And so it's been a very fun project. It is a building that was constructed in the late 1800s, as were most of the houses on Beacon Hill. It's all brick, it's 5 stories, and it's all very, very vertical. When we moved here, the one piece of exercise equipment we moved with us was a Stairmaster, which was the last thing we needed because we are running up and down the stairs all day long. And you just don't want to be walking out the door and find that you left your keys on the 5th floor and you're exiting on the 1st floor. I have always loved interior design that is, number one, really comfortable. I want it to be visually welcoming. I want you to walk in the room and there's a spot that you're drawn to go sit in. I can't stand rooms that are too stiff and too pure in one period. I think an eclectic look. My husband and I have always loved collecting art, so art has always figured into all of our spaces. As you'll see, I'm crazy about blue and white ceramics from all regions of the world, and so that is a theme that you'll see throughout the house as well. I'm partial to lighter colors. I love blues and beiges and browns. I think they're more livable. Occasionally I will feel that I need to have a shot of color, but I'd rather make that shot of color something that is a pillow or a piece of art rather than an entire sofa. I've had the wonderful opportunity to work on several projects with a friend and designer from Dallas, Texas, whose name is Kathy Kincaid. And she and I have done so many projects together that she can finish my sentences. She knows what my real values are and the look that I want. I always want things to look very elegant, but also very, very much lived in. And Kathy's just been a great partner on that, and she pushes me at times to go outside my comfort zone. And as a result, I think the projects are more dynamic and interesting. We've worked on projects all over the country, so it's kind of fun to think back how there's a thread. All the houses have a consistent look, but they definitely reflect the locale. And I think this house that we're sitting in right now reflects the look of Beacon Hill, the look of Boston, the history of Boston, but with a little bit of a contemporary flair that makes it more fresh and, as I said previously, welcoming. So we are now standing in our living room, and what's interesting is houses from this period often had 2 fireplaces, and as you can see here, identical, beautiful marble mantles. And I think it's because it was just so darn cold, you needed as many fireplaces as possible for people to gather around. When I bought the house, this section of the room was the living room and that section was the dining room, and I decided that just wasn't going to do. Most of the time that dining table would sit empty, and so I use this as my dining table when we're entertaining, albeit I can only accommodate 8 people, but I've learned that 8 people around a round, or in this case, octagonal table, is the perfect number for a really good dinner party. So when I'm not having a dinner party, as you can see, I dress the table. I want to point out I've got 2 of these globes which were made by the globe maker, Gilman Jocelyn, who built the building that the bookstore is housed in. And so these would have been made in that building in the mid-1800s. And it's just kind of a fun connection to the building. You'll see throughout my house, I love blue and white. I've had this large vase for many years. And then I've used the plates to display on this mirrored wall. I added the mirrored wall as a way to create more depth in the room. And then you'll see over the mantle here, again, a collection of blue and white. Just love, love, love blue and white. Something else I'm crazy about collecting, and that is creamware. All of these pieces, some go back as far as the 1700s. I just love the simplicity. When it's in white, you can appreciate all of the beautiful articulation, and they're more and more rare because, of course, things that are porcelain that go back to the 1700s have had a hard life, and it's amazing when they're still intact in this day and age. So if you come through here, you'll see the kitchen. This is a really cool feature of this building in that instead of the townhouse going directly back with buildings on both sides, we have an open portion, so it brings in light, and I've always loved this sort of semicircle of a window. So when we bought the house, the kitchen had just been renovated, and so I just sort of added some flourishes that I think make it a little more dynamic. You'll see in the cabinets, the left and right of the stove, I added lighting and I lined the cabinets and wallpaper. Yes, I gave up important storage space, but I love being able to again display some of my blue and white collection. I added the lantern, added wallpaper. I think wallpaper, you'll see I use a lot of wallpaper in my home. I think it always just makes a room seem so much cozier. I love the way the previous owner renovated the kitchen. It's a great size island. There's a place for us to be able to sit at the island and eat. I also have a little breakfast table. It's really good space, and I find I stay so busy that I don't do as much cooking here as I would like, but when I do cook here, it's great fun, and I love having all the natural light. Year round, this kitchen gets beautiful light, and I think that just makes a room so much more inviting. So as we move upstairs to the living area, I want to point out that this is a Syrian inlaid mother of pearl mirror, and it's a good example of integrating things from different cultures that are not indigenous to Boston, but just add texture and interest to the space. And I've had this mirror in many homes, and it was great fun to be able to bring it to Boston. So now we're going to go upstairs to the living area where my husband and I have respective bathrooms and bedroom and a library. So this is the primary bedroom, and one thing I've learned over the years is that primary bedrooms will often be enormous, and they don't need to be. They can be small and cozy and just be wonderfully comforting at the end of the day. I'm very keen on this room. I love the way we've got the fireplace, the cabinets on either side, the simplicity of the shutters on the windows instead of a lot of fussy fabric. I love the original architecture that includes the shutters. If you look this direction, you'll see there's a canopy bed. I'm very keen on canopies. I think it's like a little fort that one would build as a small child. And if you look at the detail, and again, this is where Kathy Kincaid is so brilliant, but if you look at the edging of the canopy, there's a very decorative tape that's been custom colored, and then there's another little fringe that goes along the seam. And then on the center of the canopy, you'll see there's a little rosette in the tape. Everything that Kathy does always has those dressmaker details, and it really makes a difference to the finished product. The other thing Kathy's very clever about is she finds these antique textiles, which are sometimes just remnants of a Turkish tea towel that someone has cut up and then reapplied, putting a trim, and she makes these pillows. And what's always fascinating to me is that if you look at this in the context of this contemporary fabric, it looks as though it was all done at the same time, when in fact, the tea towels probably go back to the early 1800s and the fabric was made last year. This is my bathroom, and when we moved in, it was essentially like this, except that the walls were white, flat white, and we chose to paint it in this custom sort of grayish blue with a high gloss, and it really makes a difference to kind of making the space a little more pizzazzy. The other thing I want to point out is on this wall, you'll see it was just a simple mirror insert on a wall, and we took these bone mirrors and hung them on the mirror, and it elevates the look enormously, and it wasn't expensive. It's just a good little trick. Anyhow, classic clawfoot tub. It's a pretty space. I'm so happy with it. So when I was in my early 20s, and by the way, my love of interior design goes back to when I was a small child, but when I was in my early 20s, I was visiting a beautiful, beautiful home in Santa Barbara, California, in Montecito. And the owner, as we were walking through her beautifully, beautifully appointed home, she said, "A piece of advice for you, young lady, you need to pick a look and you need to start collecting towards that look, so that over the course of your lifetime, you aren't just shedding things, you're building a collection." And so that made a real impression on me. I think it's sometimes hard to stick with one look because we become more sophisticated, we get to see more things as we get older, and our tastes are naturally going to change. But there is a fairly consistent look that I've carried through over, the past 35 years in 7 or 8 different houses. And I think the key thing is always go for quality. Better to have an empty spot than buy something that's junky that then becomes permanent, and really wait until you can get the right thing of the right quality. Having said that, I've also learned that sometimes if you've got something that creates the effect, it may not be a priceless antique or a vintage vase, but if it's got the right finish and the right look, you can create the effect. It's the highs and lows in a room that make it interesting. If everything is museum quality, it becomes so stiff and so uninteresting. You want to have different textures and different levels of finish. So this is the library, and I think this is really one of my favorite rooms in the house. Of course, I'm partial to books. That might be one reason. But the proportions are lovely in here. It's a grass cloth on the walls. A trick that Kathy always uses with all of her wallpapers is that she edges all wallpaper in this very small grosgrain ribbon. And it goes around the doorways, the base, and the ceiling molding. And it just makes an enormous difference to make something more finished. I've always loved this screen, which is a French screen, probably from the 1800s. I've had it in 2 previous homes, and it's just kind of fun that it reinvents itself everywhere we go. Yeah, I just think this is a cozy room, a pretty fireplace that is original to the house. And this is that part of the house that in most townhouses on Beacon Hill, there'd be a building adjacent to us, so there wouldn't be windows, but this part of the house has the advantage of the sunlight coming in, and it's really a beautiful room at all times of the year. So let's go upstairs, yet another flight of stairs, up to the 4th floor where we have 2 guest rooms and a roof deck. So follow me. So since my children are grown, all of our bedrooms are now guest rooms. And this is a guest room where I literally took everything from my previous home, which was Dallas, Texas, and brought it here, reinstalled the same wallpaper, obviously new wallpaper, but the same pattern, but reused everything. And I'm a big believer in that we don't need to completely redo things every time we move house. And I've always loved this canopy. If you look at the way the scallop detail goes along the top, the way the interior fabric is related to the exterior, but it's a simpler version. Just lots of great details. And I mentioned my love of blue and white porcelain, but I also have this collection which I'm very, very fond of. It is a Moustier from southern France. I have hundreds of these plates, which I have collected over time, and you'll see a couple of them featured here on the bracket and over the mirror. It's just kind of an unusual color scheme, which I'm quite fond of. And then here is another guest room, just a very sweet bedroom with twin beds. And if you come back and look at this viewpoint, you can see that again, these are called testers, where it's a partial canopy over the top of the bed, and it just makes it more cozy and decorative. So this is the top floor of the townhouse. You can see we've got lots of good natural light coming through with the skylight. I love this room. Again, a little bit of a connection to the bookstore, but this wallpaper is all from Sister Parish Design, and it's been custom colored, and I just love it. I never tire of the pattern. And this is an old Swedish break front that we line the inside of the doors, and there's a TV hidden behind it. Again, you see my blue and white, the massive blue and white plate on the top. It's a theme that runs throughout the house, the blue and white lamps. I'm quite fond of this this whole look in here, it's meant to be a little bit inspired as a Moroccan souk with the banquette seating. It's very cozy, very comfortable, and we can fit a lot of people up here to watch a good movie. So on Beacon Hill, it's very special to be able to have a place that you can get outside in privacy of your home. So we really treasure having this roof deck, which when we moved in was just this simple flat floor that you see. And our architect designed this beautiful trellis pattern with all of these planters so we could bring in all of these boxwood globes. And then an efficient use of space was to create this banquette here for seating and a dining area for outdoor dining. So when I was conceiving this idea of starting a bookstore in Beacon Hill, I felt that what would make it successful was for it to feel as though customers were walking into my private home. And so as a result, the look of the bookstore and the look of my house are very similar. And there are a lot of antiques, light fixtures, porcelain artwork that I have taken from my home and reappointed in the bookstore. And I think that's what gives the bookstore that extra warmth and finish, is that it's not all things that you would typically see in a retail space. That was carried through with the level of finish on the wood carvings, and everything that we did in the bookstore is comparable to what I would do in my home. And I think that's what makes the space so special, is that it is an extension of my home. It feels very comparable. Okay, so now let's go to my favorite neighborhood bookstore a few blocks away, Beacon Hill Books. You've just arrived at Beacon Hill Books and Café. Excited to show you around. Please come on in. So welcome to the main floor of Beacon Hill Books. As you'll see, it's a 5-story building that the bookstore and cafe occupies in entirety. And this main sales floor, you'll see, has got lots of architectural details and finishes that are not typical of a bookstore. My vision with this bookstore was to really lean into the interior design details and have it feel as though you're coming into my home. So for example, if you look at this mantle that we put in, you'll see there are these beautiful wood carvings. Here we have BHBC for Beacon Hill Books and Cafe. We have the oak leaf. Above the bookcases, we have acorns because our mascot is a squirrel. And so there's just a lot of detail that you would not typically see in a commercial space, but it has been the real success of our brand, is that we leaned into the details. All of the paint, and if you kind of scan around, you see it's this beautiful mix of green and blue, is a Farrow and Ball color called light blue. And it is used throughout the entire building. We've exclusively used Farrow and Ball paints because they have such a great patina. All of the colors is kind of indeterminate, very soft, and they look beautiful at all times of day. Wonderful features of this old building, it was built in the 1800s, is we have these wonderful massive windows, which we've made a real effort to keep clear. There's still some products that end up, blocking the view, but it's an important part of the store. You'll look over here, you'll see there's this wallpaper that runs up the stairs, and that is a sister parish wallpaper. All of the fabrics and wallpapers in the building are from Sister Parish Design, which has been a great collaboration. I decided to partner with them because I felt it was a really good brand to align with our brand. It's a woman-owned business, it's privately owned, it's been run by 4 successive women in the Sister Parish line of descendants. And it's just a classic brand, but it's got a little bit of a contemporary hit, and that's part of what we think the brand of Beacon Hill Books is. So as you look through this window, you'll see a beautiful, what's called a guild sign. They're all along Charles Street, and it goes back to a tradition going back centuries, where the sign hanging in front of the business is somehow a 3-dimensional object that represents the business. So I delivered a massive block of mahogany to a wood carver, a French wood carver, who took that and was able to replicate our logo, which is a squirrel sitting on a stack of books. The squirrel then came to life in the form of a book that we commissioned about a squirrel named Paige that lives in the bookstore at night and goes to the public garden during the day to read stories, or rather to tell stories that they've read the night before. And it's a really sweet children's book that has a nice message about belonging and the importance of reading. We also have a place where Paige lives, and you can see down here, usually there's a window in front of it, but if you zoom in, you'll see that this is all hand constructed. It's meant to be items that are found items that a squirrel might find and then use in their home. The bed is made out of twigs. The top of the table and the seat are the Bon Maman jam jar tops. One fun thing that I love to point out is the little itty bitty painting over the fireplace is a replica of the Rembrandt that was stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum 30 years ago. So when my husband and I returned to Boston 2019, I decided that it was a great opportunity for me to start a business. And I looked around Beacon Hill, and I was very surprised to find that there was no bookstore because, of course, Boston is such a great literary city. Beacon Hill has had many, many famous authors throughout time who have lived on the hill. Its residents are highly educated. They're big readers, and I thought, it's crazy there's no bookstore here. And so from the get-go, my vision was that I needed to get my hands on one of these 5-story townhouses similar to my home that we're sitting in on Charles Street, which is the main shopping street in Beacon Hill, and that you would wind through the space, up the stairs and into little different nooks and crannies, and it would make the process of shopping feel like you were kind of wandering into Aladdin's cave, and around each corner there was some new surprise that was awaiting you. So that was the concept from the start. I bought the building in 2019 and then of course went blaring into 2020 with plans to do a gut renovation on the building, and then the pandemic hit. The advantage of trying to renovate, a very complicated renovation by the way, in a city that has a lot of strict rules and an architectural commission that's even more strict in Beacon Hill. The advantage of the process moving slowly due to the pandemic was that it gave me time to really think through things and to develop new ideas. And so, for example, on the children's floor, one morning, 2 years before we opened, I thought, I need to have a train that runs around above the bookcases in the children's room. Or I need to have a storybook that tells the story of our mascot, and we need to have a little diorama of the squirrel's house. So those ideas, I wouldn't have had the chance to come up with those ideas and implement them if things hadn't been moving so slowly during COVID. So in some ways it was a blessing that I had time to really be creative and implement. Okay, so now we're on the 3rd floor of the bookstore. As I mentioned, this is the fiction floor. And what's really marvelous about this space is you've got this long library table where all of our latest books are displayed, and these wonderful full-length windows, which again go back to the 1800s. And I want to draw your attention again to the wood carving. So not only over the mantle, but if you look around the frieze of the room, you'll see we added all of these triglyphs and then little objects that relate to arts and letters. So if it's a globe, or it's the quill and ink, or it's an artist's palette and brush, all things that relate to arts and letters. This is my favorite part of the bookstore, and this is what we call our aesthetics room, and everything in here relates to architecture, interior design, landscape, gardening, art history, fashion, and art monographs. The paint in here is Farrow and Ball, and this color is called Rectory Red. And I draw your attention to the ceiling, which is wallpapered in a sister parish wallpaper called Serendipity. This is one of the best collections in Boston of interior design books, and you'll see tons of classics and some of the younger, more recently published designers. Persephone Books is a line of books that we carry, unique to Boston, that is an English publisher from Bath, England, that has researched and found books that were written by women, mid-century forward, that were never published because they weren't deemed worthy because they were women authors. And so she has resurrected these books, and they are fantastic. We sell hundreds of them a week, and they're just great fun. And if you're into interior design, you'll appreciate that while all of the books have this beautiful gray-blue packaging, the end papers are different on every book, and the end papers that they've chosen are either wallpaper patterns or end papers that would have been developed in the period in which the book was written. So that's kind of a fun thing. And also I should point out there are sconces throughout the bookstore between all the bookcases, and these are custom-made lampshades that we had covered in Sister Parish fabrics. And then another thing that I think really makes this space work, and it would certainly be equally effective in a private home, is the way we have the brass light fixtures, the library lights that go over the bookcases. It just gives everything a little extra glow. I should also point out that all of our signs are hand painted by a classical sign painter with gold leaf. And those are the touches that I think really elevate the space and make it a rich, rich to the eye. One thing I've done in this space is I have brought a lot of things from my personal collection, artwork. These red lanterns that you see hanging were hanging in my home, the sconces, and then these are among my favorite. I have a collection of these, 2 of 4, that are referred to as Rouen pots. They're iron pots. They date back to the late 1700s. These are in remarkably good condition, and I don't think many of my customers even notice it, but it makes me feel good to know that they're here. And again, it elevates the space by integrating these interior design elements that you would typically see in a home rather than in a retail setting. I think my favorite thing about the bookstore is the comment that I receive repeatedly, and that is that it feels like a big, warm hug. I love that because that means that my staff is doing everything they can to make people feel welcomed, that the books are calling out to them. People walk in and they see themselves represented in the titles and the authors that are being sold, and that the space, the feeling of the space, the aroma of our house candle that's burning, the fresh flowers that we always have as you enter, the beautiful light shades of blue from Farrow & Ball, all of the great fabrics and wallpaper from Sister Parish Design, all of those things combine to create an atmosphere that's very welcoming, and that's what people respond to. And as a result, it's crazy, but we have hundreds of people lining up every weekend to come into the bookstore because it's become a real Boston destination. Let's go up to the children's floor, part of our brand. And again, please take in the beautiful Sister Parish wallpaper, which I think is just fabulous. And this is a fun detail. We added this window. When we renovated the building, it was a gut renovation, but this was kind of fun to provide this perspective into the interior design space. So this is the official entrance to the children's floor, and during the day, the kids, knocking the knocker and running in and out of these doors. And again, see, look at this beautiful wood carving done by our French wood carver with the pot of ink and the quill. So we won't go through that door, come through the big door. And this is the children's floor, which is meant to remind you of the nursery in Peter Pan or the nursery in Mary Poppins. Beautiful arched bookcases with our iconic acorn at the top. Again, the mantle is beautifully carved. Since it's the children's floor, we have 2 squirrels sharing books with a little butterfly that's on top of it. We have our Boston alphabet, which we just love, where each letter is a different place in Boston. And these are all done by Sally King McBride, who is a family member who has a business called, a family friend rather, who has a business called The Letter Nest in New York City. This is again Farrow & Ball color. You'll see over the door on this side, it says Once Upon a Time, and then you come through here into the other room. So on one side it's Once Upon a Time, and the other side is Happily Ever After. this is where story time occurs and the kids gather together. We have a bookseller who's in charge of children's programming, and they all nestle together on the floor, and it's just very cozy. It's cozy year-round, but I have to say in the middle of winter when it's super cold outside, there's nothing cozier than being inside Beacon Hill Books. And since we're standing here in August, I didn't highlight the fact that we have fireplaces on every floor, which really adds a lot of atmosphere and charm to the space. One of my favorite stories is that Cindy Crawford, she came into the store, and one of our very dutiful booksellers, as she was ringing up Cindy Crawford's order, had no idea who Cindy was, and she said, "I just love your hair, where do you get it done?" And then after the fact, she realized it was a supermodel, and it was just such a funny moment where I'm sure Cindy Crawford was thinking, she has no idea who I am, and that was probably very freeing for her, but we also got a good laugh out of the fact that she had no idea who she was, and she was asking this woman where she got her hair done as though she were just some, average person off the street. We've had some other characters, but again, we tend to be pretty low-key. Our favorite celebrities are the authors that come by to sign their books. I think the thing that surprised me most about opening the bookstore is the obvious point that social media is incredibly powerful. When we first opened, as often happens, people create their own videos of the store and then they upload them to TikTok or YouTube. And in the first week that we opened, October of 2022, someone posted a video on TikTok of the bookstore which went viral. And that quickly had over 1 million views. And as you all know, the minute something has that many views, it just mushrooms. And I think we're still feeling the wave of that. And now we'll go down to the lower level where our cafe and garden are. Follow me. So the building is situated in a building that was constructed in the mid-1800s. It was the home and workshop of the preeminent globe designer of the day. And I've actually been able to purchase some of the globes. They're collected by museums and libraries and the like, and they're really quite lovely. And this is where it all happened in the mid-1800s. So come on in, we're gonna go down our alley into our cafe. We have a little pocket garden. So I love the little pocket garden that goes with this building, and you'll see we've got a wonderful sail that blocks the sun, and this is one of the best spots in Beacon Hill for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And I want to point out this black box with the roof and the mirror and back is inspired by something that was created in Victorian England called an auricula theater. An auricula is a type, I think, the Latin term for primrose flowers. And in the day they would construct these and put the little plants on the shelf in the early spring when it was still cold and could get icy to protect the flowers and kind of nurture them along. And so when I was trying to figure out what to put on this back wall, I thought, perfect, an auricula theater. And then we backed it with mirror, which creates a wonderful sense of space. When you come out of the cafe and you look into this, the light bounces and it creates additional depth. We added this trellis on this wall here with the 2 lanterns, and this trellis was originally the lay light in a building on Beacon Hill. The lay light being the upper level where natural light would have come through a skylight, and so we converted it into a trellis for the purposes of adorning this wall and having a surface where we could attach these 2 big lanterns. So we're now inside the cafe, which is quite small, only seats 16 people. But it's very popular, and I think its limited size is much of its charm. I want to be sure you see the mantle. We've got the fork, knife, and spoon that's been carved by our wonderful wood carver, Laurent Robert. This is a teacup at each end of the fireplace, and every season we change the look of what's on the walls and what's on the tables. And so we're just wrapping up summer, which was our nautical theme. So this is actually a piece that's from my home. I'm sure you all have seen these before. They are dioramas that were made in the 1800s by sailors. And so this is a sailing ship and a little tugboat adjacent to it. The tables, I want to point out, are kind of fun. We always have fresh flowers and one of our little Poldano lamps with a shade. And we changed the runner underneath. We always have an interesting napkin ring. Again, this was our summer theme, sort of a Nantucket red and a rope pattern for the napkin ring. And then all of these chargers were handmade by my sister-in-law out in Los Gatos, California. We come up with ideas, and she's really good sport about creating different designs for us for our chargers. On Sunday afternoons, we have a tradition of serving a very traditional formal English tea, and it's become a go-to event for people. Birthday parties, take your best friend out, and it's the traditional thing with the tiered stand that I've collected by going to antique markets in England. Silver stand with scones and tea sandwiches and sweets and a pot of tea. It's very traditional. And so that led us to develop our own brand of tea. And you'll see here they have literary allusions, or at least historical allusions. We have Miss Austen's chamomile, we have Gardener's mint, we have Prime Minister's tea, which is Earl Grey, and it's a wonderful gift, and it's actually really, really good tea, I have to say. And I want to point out, I love the way we design this. It's meant to mimic our building, and you'll see a drawing of the building on the side, so that the tea canister is like a little version of our building. And then the other thing that we sell down here is, since it is the cafe, we sell cookbooks, and I'm always proud of the fact that you'd be hard-pressed to find a region of the world where we have not represented in some way cookbooks from that region. The word home to me is a feeling. Sometimes it's the intangible of just walking into a space and feeling embraced, feeling comfortable. Everything from the level of lighting and candlelight and scented candles and fresh flowers, all of those things are sensory perceptions that really cause us to either be drawn to a space or to want to leave a space. And so I'm always very attuned to that any place can feel like home, no matter how small or large. It's all about the attention to detail. And as a good friend of mine said many years ago, a house needs to be loved. And boy, if that isn't true, we need to constantly be tinkering and adjusting things to assure that it's at its optimal.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Erin. Welcome to my home in Massachusetts. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Erin Gates. I'm an interior designer and author, and I would like to welcome you to my home in Wellesley, Massachusetts. The story behind this house is that we needed more space after having a second baby during COVID. And so we were on the hunt for a new property that had a bigger yard and more space for our two kids. So we bought this house in 2020. We've been here almost 5 years, and we just loved the grand proportions of the lower level living rooms. We loved the acre that we're on, which is hard to come by in this town, and we just love it here. So this house was built in 1865. I love an old house, but what was wonderful was that the guts of the house had already been renovated in the early 2000s. So it already had new windows, a new roof, new systems, which was great. So I got to spend all my money on the interior and the renovations of the aesthetics instead of the fun, the not fun things that you can't see, like wiring. And what we love the most about this design and this era of home are the almost 11-foot ceilings, the giant floor-to-ceiling windows, and the grand staircase, the formal living room. It just had a really lovely, graceful feel about it. So we are entering the formal living room, and this room When we bought the house, immediately my husband said would be the Christmas room. He's obsessed with Christmas, and he thought this would be the perfect space for a holiday party. The high ceilings were amazing, and all of the windows. I knew immediately I wanted to color drench this room, in that I wanted the millwork, the fireplace mantle, and all the trim to be painted the same color. However, that took a few tests and tries before we got the right color. The color we ended up on in this room was Benjamin Moore Wales Gray, which is a really beautiful, subtle blue that has a little bit of gray in it. It doesn't go baby blue. I wasn't sure if I wanted green or blue in here, but that's what we ended up with. Over here, we have enough room for a piano, and this is actually the piano that I grew up with in my parents' home. So when we bought this house, they gifted us this piano, which my kids bang on and my husband attempts to play. This window seat was existing, which we love, so we reupholstered the cushion, and this is just a great little perch. And then this area, the only thing I did differently construction-wise in this home, in this part of the home, was changing out the marble surround on the fireplace, which we got it's like a breccia marble. It's got a purpley vein. I really loved it. It was a lucky remnant, and I think it really makes a nice statement in the room. We also changed out all the lighting, so this is all visual comfort. And then I knew I wanted two sofas facing each other, and I wanted them to be super deep so we could really like pull our legs up and get cozy in here by the fire, which is wood burning. So I had these sofas custom made and designed with Bjork Studio in Atlanta, who I love working with. And this is definitely a high-low mix in here. These are custom, this is CB2. So I love mixing high and low. This corner, I have this chair that I bought maybe 15 years ago that I reupholstered and has been in every house I think I've had. And it's just one of those classic great antique finds that stay with you forever. And then this coffee table I actually had in my last house. It's a Oli Studio table. It's no longer made, unfortunately, but it's one of my favorite ways to introduce a little modern design into a pretty traditional room. On this side, I knew I wanted a very long skirted console, and the way we did this was actually, it's IKEA shelves. We added legs to, and then I had a custom skirt made. So we hide a lot of things underneath here, which is really helpful. This painting I had commissioned by Casey Hughes. I really love the movement and the modern element again in this room that is pretty traditional otherwise. I think it makes an unexpected little statement. And this is just a mix, I think, in here of a lot of some new, some old, some high, some low. These little cocktail tables are from Pottery Barn. They're under $200. I think that's what makes this room successful, is this high-low mix. For these sofas, since they're so deep, I really wanted to have lumbar pillows, not just the typical square pillows. So I did this nice pair of lumbar pillows in a jasper fabric and then added the square end pillows, also a jasper fabric, a favorite of mine. And I think mixing like the big floral with the kind of block print stripe, smaller scale, is a nice, successful way of doing two organic patterns together. I found this rug on Etsy. It's vintage, and it was very affordable, it's a great place to find affordable vintage rugs. I didn't really know what to do with this back portion of the room. We have these great arch built-ins that were original to the house, and I was gonna do a game table, but then this was like during COVID times when we were decorating, and we needed multiple work from home areas. So I ended up adding a desk and a really comfortable chair. My husband does work from home quite a bit, so this is a great spot for that. And actually, my son does his homework here sometimes. So I think it's a nice way to utilize kind of an awkward space behind a sofa in a room like this. The bookcases are kind of where I keep all my like family mementos, a lot of books, a lot of like, we've collected a lot of these rocks on trips to the beach. I also have my picture with Oprah that I will cherish until I die. So it's just a nice place to collect things that I don't necessarily want to show off in a big way, but tell a story of our family and, you know, our life. This little corner near the entry is a real interesting mix of a beautiful charcoal sketch on linen that I had in my old house, a painting done by my grandmother a really long time ago that I put here. These are from like Dillard's, I think. And this table was a $50 Facebook Marketplace find. But this is a good representation of how you can mix lots of different things from different parts of your life and different price points in a really successful way. When approaching this home, I wanted to respect the architecture and the era of the home, but introduce some more modern, streamlined pieces into it at the same time, so it felt like a really nice, warm mix of traditional and modern design. I wanted to have some color, but a base of neutrals, and I really wanted it to feel luxe but livable. So I have 2 little kids, we have a dog. We live in every room in this house, and I wanted it to be something I was proud to invite people over to have cocktails or dinner, but also feel comfortable enough to kick up my feet with my kids and really relax. Okay, we are entering the foyer. This is the formal entry to the home. This is a gigantic staircase. I wanted to just cover with a simple wool sisal carpet. Added some prints that I scored at Brimfield one year that I framed, and added some new lighting. This is still minimal. I'm actually thinking about wallpapering this whole stairwell now, so stay tuned and see if I decide to do that. And it's open to our formal dining room. This is the formal dining room of the home. This was one of the rooms I was most excited about to decorate. This mural wallpaper was the very first thing I picked for this house. It's from Mural Sources, and I just immediately knew this is what I wanted in this room. So this was an easy room to decorate, actually. We replaced the lighting. These are all visual comfort fixtures. And the table is actually a design, a custom design of mine with Houston and Company out of Maine. I've made a bunch of tables with them. I wanted this one to feel like a French antique, but really streamlined. And I couldn't find one, an actual antique that was gonna work in this room, dimension-wise. So I made it instead, and you can buy it now on their website. The chairs I found on Cherish. They were an amazing deal, and I reupholstered them in a velvet on the front and a little pattern on the back, and they have held up very well and were a great deal. The little china hutch was original. I did absolutely nothing to it, just filled it with great plates. This mirror I love, love, love. It's from Meacock's Gardens, and it's exactly what I was envisioning for this room. The buffet is an antique, also found on Facebook Marketplace or Etsy, I can't remember, but was maybe $200, which was fantastic. The rug is actually from my collection with Momenty. So I've rotated a few of my rugs out in here. I did get a puppy who ruined my last rug, but I'm very excited about this new release that we have added in here. For drapes, I did a gray faux wool that they drape so beautifully, and we added this geometric trim. And then in this little bump out, bay window bump out, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted here. So I went with an antique side table and 2 boucle chairs from CB2, which adds, again, a little unexpected modern touch, which I'm kind of craving in each room. and some little pillows we had made from another favorite jasper fabric. This is one of my table settings. I have a few different sets of china. Now that I have a formal dining room, I really love having dinner parties. This one is a real mix of some formal gold edged china, some of this lettuceware that I love collecting, and these are antique blue opaline glasses that I got maybe in 2005 that I have held on to because I think they're so interesting and they add such a nice pop of color into this room. And the silverware, well, gold flatware, I picked up also on Etsy. And it's really just a lovely faux bamboo style that I use for formal dinners. These are really cute, rechargeable Pookie lamps. I love using these instead of candles sometimes. It's just like a soft light and no risk of, burning anything down. So because this room has a very strong green theme, I have been collecting green patterned china, and some of it is antique. These are Heron from my mother-in-law. The lettuceware again. These I cannot remember where I bought, but Lily of the Valley is one of my favorite flowers. So when I saw these, I jumped on it. And then this is from H&M. This was an antique score for like $40. It's truly a mix of all different types and price points of china that I love to mix and match. The best compliment someone could give me about my home is that it feels like a home and that it doesn't feel like a showroom or like a kind of space that you don't feel comfortable really relaxing in. I think homes that are layered and tell a story and put people at ease are the best kind of homes. In between the dining room and the kitchen, we have this great little bar. This was a bar when we moved in, but it had a sink, which we didn't need. And so we instead installed a wine fridge. And instead of upper cabinets, I changed them to these kind of floating shelves that have great LED strip lighting underneath. We wanted this to feel like a downtown cool bar. So we did a antique mirrored backsplash, a walnut counter, this really, really fun tortoise feathery wallpaper on the ceiling that everybody comments on whenever they come in. And this is just a really fun space. We love entertaining, we love mixing drinks. I get to collect all different kinds of glassware, and it's just a good time. My favorite cocktail is a Cosmopolitan. And these little glasses are absolutely adorable. They have little stars etched on them. They look vintage, but they're not. So I use these all the time. I also have some cute, these are vintage. Somebody gifted me for my birthday with a bottle of champagne. And that's a really great housewarming gift, FYI. It's hard to choose my favorite room in the house. I have a few. But I would have to say my new kitchen, which we just finished 2 years ago, which is really kind of my dream kitchen, is the heart of the home, certainly with 2 kids and family. But it's also a room that I still walk in and be like, I can't believe this is my kitchen. Here we are in my new kitchen. We just finished this gut renovation about 2 years ago. This we worked really hard on nailing because it's a little bit of a tricky space. There are 5 cased openings in the kitchen, which leaves very little wall space for cabinets. So we made sure to utilize all the vertical space we have in here, taking the cabinets up to the ceiling, which are 10.5 feet. My favorite thing in this kitchen is my La Cornue induction range. I got this from Williams-Sonoma and it is amazing. It is greener and safer for the home, but also absolutely stunning. And this was the jumping off point for the entire kitchen. The other thing I really wanted to have in this kitchen was a full slab backsplash with a strong veined marble, and I hemmed and hawed over this decision quite some time, and ended up with this great marble that mixes some warm tones and some gray tones, and did this little curved backsplash, which I love. The hood was custom made in Florida, and unfortunately I hung a wreath on it with suction cups, and now I have to figure out how to get those marks out of my hood. One thing I really wanted in this kitchen was a pot rail, and I knew I wanted to have copper pots on them, but these are looking pots because they do not work on induction ranges. So this is what we lovingly call items that are more for looks than function. So don't try to use copper on induction. The walls I wanted to add texture to, but this is a kitchen, so you have to be, reasonable. This is a vinyl grass cloth from Philip Jeffries. The island we did in a stained walnut, a few shades darker than our floors. I really love how this came out, especially the countertop with the OG edge. The giant Shaw's sink, which hides a lot of dirty dishes that I can't get to in the morning. And this is a brass faucet from California Faucets. In here, we have kind of our everyday dishware, some more non-everyday dishware in the glass cabinetry, and this is kind of the workhorse area of the kitchen. And then what's interesting in here, this decision was to split the freezer and fridge, flanking into the butler's pantry, which was the only way I could really fit the size fridge and freezer I wanted. And I actually end up loving the look of having it split. I feel like you don't see it that often. The backsplash tile in here is a really affordable Subway from Bedrosians. I use it quite a bit. It looks like Zalige, but it's not. These counter stools, I have used these so many times in my work because they are literally the perfect counter stool. They are by Lawson Fenning out in California, and I covered them in a green faux leather, which is wipeable and indestructible to my children. And through here is our new butler's pantry. This used to be my mudroom, and when we did our kitchen renovation, we enclosed a side porch to create a mudroom and gave some dedicated space for butler's pantry. We needed this for food storage, a second sink, second dishwasher, and wall oven and microwave. So this really has kind of everything that we use on a day-to-day basis. This is a coffee bar with retractable doors that hides the machines when not in use. This countertop actually is reused from an earlier iteration of a facelift in my kitchen. It's actually a granite, looks like soapstone. I really love it. And these brass mesh grills on these doors are one of my favorite things. I think they really elevate the space, make it feel special, but also conceal the absolute mess that is behind here. So this is a really useful room for us, especially given that we don't have as much cabinetry and wall space in the kitchen proper. This room kind of made up for it with how useful it is and how much we can store in here. I've owned my own design firm for 18 years now, but I've always been interested in the arts, but not necessarily interior design. However, I was raised by an architectural designer father and come from multi-generational fashion family. So my great-grandparents ran a women's department store, my grandparents and then my parents worked there as well. So the intersection of architecture and fashion kind of led me to a career in interior design, which is kind of a nice mix of both. I certainly had jobs that made no sense in that path getting there. I was an insurance broker, I worked at an art gallery, I worked at a private school, so it wasn't a linear path. But once I started my blog in 2007, things just started rolling consistently, and I started getting clients, and then cut to 18 years later, and I have a design firm, I have licensed collections of products, and just had my third book come out. So the new book is called Elements of Timeless Style, and it was born actually from me buying this house and my editor thinking the renovation of this house would be a good story to tell. So it is a document of, everything I did to my own home, the process, how it went, mistakes that were made, things that were successful, but it also is 8 other homes that we've designed, all different styles of homes that I think are long-term residences. They're not flips. They're not homes that people plan on selling anytime soon. They're really places where people dug into the design and committed. And I think that's something that people are doing more and more these days. And now we're in the space we spend all of our time, which is the family room, which is right off the kitchen. One of the reasons I love this house so much was the abundance of natural light in this room. Originally, actually, this was a half wall with a really ugly electric fireplace that I knocked down and replaced with a full built-in and gas range, which I really am glad I did, even though there were some people who thought it was a crazy idea. This holds like all my kids' crafts and games, which is the reality of life with kids. This mantle I actually found on Etsy. It's cast stone. And of course, there's a TV, but the frame TV means that you can have a TV above your fireplace and it doesn't have to be completely ugly. In here, we also did a kind of more modern coffee table from Room and Board. This is a great mohair chair from Made in Home, so those are retail options. And then I have 2 side tables that are antiques passed down to me from my parents, and a big custom sectional that is upholstered in a perennials outdoor fabric, which still stains, but much less so than some other options. I did some custom pillows in here and a fun checker print, and then a floral stripe, again from Jasper. And this is just like where we spend tons and tons of time. I've had this Bunny Williams brushstroke lamp for years. I have brought it with me everywhere. It's one of my favorites. I think it's a total classic. Absolutely love the scale, the detail. It's a favorite. Our bookshelves, I backed with a grass cloth to give a little dimension and depth and texture to these rather tall white millwork pieces, filled with books, antiques. I just picked this up in New York, and little, picture frames and collected things, shells from the beach. And also you can see all 3 of my books lined up together. So I really wanted in this family room to have an informal place to eat dinners when it's just the 4 of us, or have quick breakfasts for the kids and not eat at the counter or in the dining room. So we created this little space within the family room, which has this great custom banquette made by Bjork Studio in a cravat faux leather. This table is faux marble. I bought, I believe, on Amazon, because I don't want to have to care about what my kids do to this table. And yet then I bought 2 How to Marry a Millionaire chairs from Peter Dunham, which are amazing and I love them to death. So these add a little bit of texture and a little bit of a modern flair. And the artwork is a photograph of Nantucket by Lauren Martilla. And I absolutely love the tones in this piece. It kind of was the jumping off point for the palette in this room. And we sell this print exclusively on our website, Gates & Co. This is my teeny tiny powder room, which when we moved in, we replaced the floor with a checkerboard marble pattern, a new pedestal sink, painted all of the woodwork Pharaoh and ball green smoke, and added this paper from Sandberg, Raphael. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I think everyone uses it, but it's great for a reason. And then I repurposed this great little Casey Hughes piece that I had in my old house in here, and it just worked perfectly. So I just love the overall kind of like bold wallpaper, tiny room vibe. I both love and loathe designing my own home. It's a very difficult process for someone who sees a lot of options come through her office every single day and loves change and loves new things. So this house will be a continued process for me. This is my mudroom. This was originally a porch. And when we did our kitchen renovation, we enclosed this because we needed much more storage with our kids. I really wanted cubbies and I needed a place for everything. So we did these custom built-in cubbies with a little window seat, which is where my dog sits every day and waits for us to come home. Everybody's got their little space for everything, backpacks, coats, off-season stuff in these cabinets up here with the little pie hole cutouts, and baskets for shoes. The floor is a faux brick, so it's super durable. The wallpaper is another Jasper, Michael Smith, and we had a custom memo board made so we can keep schedules and photos and kids' artwork handy in here. And welcome to our brand new patio that we just finished a mere month and a half ago. So I haven't shown this yet. We really wanted to create a livable, wonderful outdoor space for our family and friends to gather. So we worked with a great contractor to do this bluestone patio, fire pit, and half wall off of our barn garage. We wanted to have a dedicated dining space here. This table expands to fit more people. And this is kind of a sneak peek of my new holiday collection with Cossatex. So we set the table for you just to show off how you can make an outdoor space look a little more formal and dress it up. And then down here, we have this awesome stack stone gas fire pit, which my kids try to roast s'mores every night at. We decided to do a new sectional sofa down here from Front Gate. It's really, really weather resistant. Added some throw pillows that kind of play off our hydrangeas that are turning blush right now, which I love. And this round coffee table that's a smidge more modern and clean, also from Front Gate. Same with the chairs. Front Gate, this is a new collection they have that I love. I love mixing stripes and then solids in outdoor, and I also love mixing wood and woven wicker. And then we have some chaises over here for lounging and just enjoying our kids playing in the yard. What gives a home a soul and makes it come alive, I think, are collected items that tell a story. So not feeling like you walk into a house and everything is perfect and matches exactly and is brand new. I think mixing things from your family, antiques, new things, original art, things you've bought on your travels, and things that really reflect who you are as a person and not trying to present an image to the world of a certain type of person. I think those are the most successful interiors and the most interesting. When people walk into my home, I want them to feel at ease, comfortable, but also like there's a little air of elegance happening here. The word home means to me wherever my family is and wherever we can feel safe and comfortable and relaxed together. Thanks for coming by for my tour with Homeworthy, and I really hope I'll see you guys again soon.
On today's episode of Homeworthy, we are in Boston, Massachusetts, visiting the home of Whitney Talsma, the founder and lead designer of Oliver James Interiors. Whitney and her family live in a charming 1814 Federal-style farmhouse that boasts incredible historic charm and beautiful gardens. She has made an effort to add her own personal design touches while celebrating the original details of the home. Whitney loves hunting for vintage furniture and decor at antique shows and flea markets, blending these pieces with her newer items for a lived-in look with stories to tell. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi Homeworthy, my name's Whitney Talsma and welcome to my home in Boston, Massachusetts. Hi, my name is Whitney Talsma and I am an interior designer in Metro West Boston. I take care of residential homes and design them for families, young professional couples, and absolutely love my job. My family and I, which includes my husband, my son Theo, and my daughter Willow, we have lived in this house just under 2 years. It'll be 2 years in August. And this house is a really special home. It is called Stonewall Gardens, and it is actually on the National Register of Historic Homes by the Department of State, which is really exciting. It was established in 1814, so it's over 200 years old, which is amazing. But it has such a modern living feel. It's such a great flow to the house, tall ceilings, big windows, super charming. We love this home. This family, the original family that lived here, they were in the leather whip making business for stagecoaches. So they would make 20-foot long whips. There was agriculture on the land, so lots of like cranberry bogs in the area, apple fields. So a lot going on this property, which I think is why it makes it so special. And there was even a little shoe shop on the property as well. And you will hear a little story later about some old shoes that we found. So my style is kind of a little mix of different things. So definitely colorful, lots of pattern, whimsical and cheerful, and there's a little touch of femininity, but you will also find some areas too that have a masculine feel. I absolutely love florals. You will find florals everywhere in patterns and art, and just fresh flowers around the house. So that is definitely like the core of my design style. I would also say that I do also love like traditional, you could say like grand millennial as well, English cottage, refined rustic, and then definitely those like moodier masculine spaces as well. So I am a little bit all over the place, but it allows me to be creative and kind of explore some different design styles. All right, welcome to our formal entry. We don't actually use this entry very much because the front door does not have a sidewalk leading up to it. It really is just granite steps leading into the grass, but this is a federal farmhouse style, so really it's laid out in the federal architecture way. But I have definitely made the most of this entryway because it's got a beautiful stairwell. You can see the detail on the steps, and then I added my gallery wall, which you'll be able to see, and lots of my favorite art. So I don't know if you've heard of Mary McGuire. She's one of my favorites. She has kind of all of the teal blue backgrounds, and then I've kind of sprinkled in some of the others, artists that I love as well. Another really cool thing about the front entry is this beautiful door hardware. I believe it is original to the house, which is pretty special. It is a very heavy latch, and I have to really put it in my body weight to open it up, but no intruders will get in. And you can see this really pretty unlacquered brass detail as well. So also part of our formal entry is this little vignette that I've put together. And this piece here has come with me since, I think, senior year of high school through all the homes that I've lived in. I'm from Virginia as well as my husband, and this piece I found in Southern Virginia. And it is like an antique piece, and it really has worked well in all the homes, but especially this spot here. It just goes so well with the wallpaper that was put in by the previous owner, and the colors and everything, and just adds that kind of touch of antique feel. And then of course I have my little collected antique books, which you'll see everywhere in the house. But yeah, I just love this little vignette. I've got my pleated lampshade. You'll notice that I love a lot of pleated lampshade scallops. That's like another big feature that I put into my designs. And then my dried hydrangeas and my little straw dogs that I think are just a fun, playful, whimsical touch to our foyer. So this wallpaper here, not necessarily my go-to design style. It was installed by the previous owner, but I have definitely been able to work with it and add my own special touches, just like my gallery wall with all of those nature and botanical art and prints and frames. And I think it just adds, takes these big swaths of wall and makes it more interesting. So I think the previous owner did a really good job adding that. All right, so now we're going to go to our formal living room. So this is our formal living room, which actually isn't so formal. It's right off the playroom. So this is just a space that has this beautiful fireplace. As you can see, it's original to the home. And this is one of 8 fireplaces in the house, but this one we actually can use. It's deep enough. I feel good about it. And we had the fireplace inspected, and the guy who came to inspect it said he was super impressed with the construction, the design inside the fireplace. So I guess when they built it back then, they did a fantastic job. But I just love the beautiful detail that you can see here that really speaks to kind of the federal architecture. And so I love to kind of highlight that. And then you can also see this little cabinet here. We don't know what's behind it. I think it's been sealed shut by paint. We're dying to somehow get it open one day and see what's behind, but it remains a mystery, so who knows. But yeah, so this room definitely is a transition space one day. This is a room on my list that I would love to kind of do a makeover on. I'd love to make this like a cozy den with built-in bookcases, and we can, burn our fires in the winter and just cozy up in the space. But for now, it is a spot where all of our furniture from our old home came in here, and the kids love to jump on the furniture, so it's not too fragile in here, definitely not super formal, but it has really great light, high ceilings, and this wallpaper was installed by the previous owner as well. And then over here, I have kind of my little vignette bookshelf. There aren't a ton of bookshelves here, so I don't have a lot of places to put all my collectibles, but this is definitely a spot where I've hung my plates on the wall that I've collected. These pieces are like Brimfield finds as well. These shaker boxes actually I got locally in town, and the story is that a woman collected each of these boxes. They didn't come as a set, and she spent years collecting the right size boxes and the right colors to create this set. And when I saw it in the antique shop, I fell in love with it and knew I had to have it, but apparently they can go for a lot if well done, so I'm hoping this is a good collection item here, but I didn't have to pay too much for it. And yeah, so this is where I like to display my items. And this here is a clock from my parents, and they passed this down on to me. This was in one of their really old homes in Virginia, and I have since inherited it. And we turned the chimes off because we couldn't manage the chimes every hour, but it still sits pretty here. But yeah, I just love having that piece in here too. And just another old house thing too, you can see just how crooked the door casing is in relation with the ceiling. There's definitely all of those oddities that you will find around the house that it's just an old home thing. So lots of sloping floors. We've got some fireplaces with the little hooks that come out that used to hang kettles. So I just love all the quirks of the old home. But again, this one is just such a great space. It really is fit for modern living. It's got central AC, which is hard to find in an old home, and just such a great layout as well. Good flow through the house. When someone is looking to buy an old home, I think taking care of kind of all the foundational pieces first that need some love. Yes, it may be a little bit kind of unsexy, if you will, but taking care of like the roofing, literal foundation, windows, that kind of thing, any safety issues. I think those are like the biggest things to start priority with, and then we can kind of take a look at the other areas of the home that we want to update or modernize a little bit while still keeping that charm and whimsy, because the last thing you want to do is strip away the beautiful historical details in a home. The other side of our formal living room here is our sofas, and again, these are the sofas that the kids jump on, and they're from our old house. But one day I would love to do some sort of like built-in bookcase here with like our love seat sitting in the middle and some sconces. I have this grand plan. I just need to execute it one day when I can afford to. But I have also this table I was inherited from my grandmother as well. And you can notice there's more of the rounded kind of scallop floral edging. But it's a really cool table. I was going to refinish it, but I actually kind of like the dark wood. And this art here is another Switzerland find from my trip last weekend. And this one, I actually wasn't sure if I was going to bring it back home on the plane or if it was going to make it. I tried to carry it on and they're like, nope, not allowed. So it was wrapped up really well in bubble. Thankfully, the antique shop did a great job with that. And so I sent it to go under the plane and prayed and hoped that it would make it, and it survived. So I just love it. It's a beautiful piece. Again, it's got florals in a vase, common theme in my house. It's oil painting, and then the frame is just beautiful in itself. So this is our little bar cart area. Luckily, the kids don't go near it or touch it, so we're lucky with that. But this is pretty much my husband's collection of alcohol, lots of spirits, some really good ones in there, and he's become really into making cocktails. So he will visit this often and craft something with all of the ingredients here. But I think it's just such a great little spot right at the window as you're coming off of the kitchen. All right, now I'd love to show you our kitchen. Follow me. All right, so this is our kitchen. It is probably my second favorite part in the house, or room in the house. And this kitchen, as well as our informal dining room, which you'll see next, is the original part of the home, so 1814. So you can see the ceilings are original to the house. They're rough hewn, adds all that character, charm, and warmth to the space. And this kitchen, when we purchased it, it was a brighter white. It was recently updated, so the countertops were here, a marble with like a touch of green in it. But I decided to take it another step further. And so I added all the beadboard on the walls and on the island as well. I had the island painted, the walls painted a creamier white just to give it, again, a little bit more warmth to the space. Changed out the hardware, and we also added some shelving. We added the window treatments. So really bringing in also more color. I changed out this light fixture as well and did these pretty little pleated shades in a green color. But we use this room all the time. It truly is the heart of our house. My husband loves to cook and the kids love to sit at the island. We have breakfast here every morning, coffee, tea, that kind of thing. And even though it's tiny, it really packs a great punch. It's just so charming, and it still has really great movement in the space. And we love like prepping next to the sink. We've got my plates here. So these are Penny Morrison plates that really play off nicely with the Roman shades. And then this is just another vintage piece of art with strawberries on it that I love. Strawberries are just so sweet to me, literally. And I've got one of my plant windows here. So these are called baby tears. But yeah, so this is kind of the kitchen area. This copper hood here was already here, and we replaced the range, but the copper hood, again, it just adds a different material. It adds that warmth. And it's just such a pretty place to cook with our copper hanging plates that I've collected, the shelving, and then the window too just adds a little bit of natural light to this space. And for space saving, we've got our knives here on the side. This is our beehive oven that actually is not functioning right now, but one day we would love to get this up and running. And for now, we store our cookbooks in there. So it's a great little spot to store the cookbooks, which we use very often. They're constantly in circulation. But again, adding kind of the brick detail that was here. It was painted by the previous owners, but we just added the creamier white to it. And I added another vintage piece of art above there. Little storage closet. And then here is also something big that I added to this kitchen. This was not here when we first moved in. And I thought, wow, this is such like oasis space, like nothing's going on here. I was like, we need more trash can, recycling bin. So I had a carpenter build out this little countertop area, kind of like coffee bar area. And then we've got pull out trash can, pull out recycling. And then up here, more cookbook storage and our microwave and storing our mugs and everything for the coffee bar. But what a great use of space. It's so functional and also really pretty with the corbel details that we added. So I'm glad we did that. This is one of the old windows, and it pops up like this, and you hook it on the little hook, and you can see we can get some fresh air, but another kind of old feature of the house that I think is really nice to have. My favorite part of the kitchen is my plant window, which apparently to an old homeowner that I had visit a couple of weeks ago, this used to be one of the entries to the house, and probably 40 years, maybe 50 years ago, they closed it up and they put this beautiful window in here. So now this is where my plants live. And I have my topiaries, our fresh herbs, basil, rosemary. I just got this jasmine plant, so I'm excited for that to bloom. I love the smell of jasmine. But this window gets southern light, so it is really our main source of light in the kitchen, and it's great for my plants as well. But I just love this little spot because fresh flowers and plants in the house just make all the difference. So as we prepare to move into the dining room, I just wanted to touch on this piece here. So I got a couple of pieces of oil paintings and art passed down to me from generations from my family in Argentina. And this is one of them. And again, I think it brings out like the copper tones in the kitchen. It adds that warmth, and it's just obviously a special family heirloom. So I found this perfect spot for it. Now it lives in the kitchen here in Boston, Massachusetts. So right off the kitchen is our informal dining space, which is also our secondary entry space. So this room serves a lot of purposes and functions. And as you can see, we have the continuation of the original ceiling beams, again from the 1814 year. And this room has been a formal entry to some previous owners, but this just made the most sense for us to use as our dining area, which was right off the kitchen. But this wallpaper here was another wallpaper installed by a previous owner, and they had great taste, so I love it too. And the trim here is also a Fairwind Ball color. And it's just so warm and just a happy space. And our dining table here is kind of set up. I have these Jalisca plates, and it's just like a charming, I changed out the light up here, and it has kind of antique feel, but not actually being antiques. And this here, actually, this painting is one of those other paintings from family member in Argentina, and they actually painted this one themselves. So this one's extra special. And I've got that one housed there. It's just beautiful with the gilt frame. This piece here is a mixed media art piece, and it is called Cherries, and you can see these nails here were collected around, like warehouses all around America. And here we have some old reclaimed wood. Up here are like vintage cigar box pieces and bookbinder pieces. So it's a really cool mixed media piece. This one was a piece that used to live in my family's summer house in Maine. And they have since sold that lake house, but they were nice enough to let me have the piece because it worked perfectly on this wall. And then here, again, as I mentioned before, it is our main entry into the house. And we had to make this little nook area our kind of shoe collection. So all the shoes are stored in this handy little Amazon cabinet. So super inexpensive, but it really gets the job done. And then our mirror here, again, bob and detail. Love the bob and detail. But we have our little bench where the kids can put the shoes on. So this little corner of our dining area is truly functional, but still works within the big picture of the space. Here's my little tablescape I put together. I just got these plates actually for Mother's Day by Jaliska, and I just love, again, the floral detail. The colors go really well in here. Lots of pattern, and then of course more scallop. If you guys don't know before the end of this that I love scallops, that may be a problem because I have mentioned it so many times, but this is just such a pretty place setting. And then strawberries I love, and I just thought that was like a pretty pop of color. And then this vase here is another piece that I found at Brimfield Flea Market. It definitely kind of has like a large French pitcher feel to it, and so I think it works really well to hold flowers, or of course if you want to put water in it and use it for that purpose as well. All the natural details too, I think, really tone down like any formality that maybe the plates bring, but I think it all works really well together. And eating on these plates day to day, it kind of just makes it more special feeling. So my family, we host a little bit when my family and my husband's parents come up from Virginia. There's quite a few of us, so I am in the process of looking for a larger dining table, and I do have some new beautiful dining chairs coming any day now, but we all gather in here, and it's just like such a cozy space at night with our light fixture glowing, and then of course the warmth of the ceiling. And it's just a different atmosphere than like maybe some other home in like a more modern setting. And right off of our dining room is one of our powder rooms. And so this space has actually got a little bit of an interesting story. I had this wallpaper for a little while and was looking for a spot to use it. Actually, I probably planned on using it in this powder room, but was just kind of waiting for the right moment. And lo and behold, let's see, I think it was last winter, one of the pipes froze in our house and directly affected this powder room. So we had to rip up all the flooring and seal that out, insulate it, that kind of thing. And this was kind of my moment to change up the powder room as I wanted. So I had this brick herringbone floor installed. And then finally got to put up my wallpaper that I had been planning on doing and was just waiting for the right moment. And sure enough, that was the time. But another kind of cool thing, when they had ripped up the flooring, remember how I had mentioned that there was a shoe shop on the property? We actually found old shoes under the flooring here. And it's just like probably 6 or 8 inch deep kind of dirt underground there, foundation under the flooring. And the shoes were just sitting there. So I don't know how old they were. They definitely looked old, potentially even from the early 1800s. But we actually just left them there. So it's kind of like a little time capsule. But I think that was a really cool find that we didn't expect to see. But this bathroom, you can see the wood paneling on the back with the mirror. That's original to the house and has gone unchanged through all the owners. We didn't, but the previous owners also installed this pedestal sink because before it was really just like also very rough wood sink, as well as kind of toilet, like really old, almost colonial looking toilet system. We needed to update that a little bit. So thank you, Kohler, for the pedestal sink and the updated toilet. But We do have this lantern, which we inherited from the previous owner, so that's been here for a while, and just adds kind of that old world charm to the space. And then this piece, actually, I found in an estate sale right across the street from a house that sold, and it worked perfectly in here. So this is just a charming little happy bathroom, again, full of garden and flowers, my favorite. So I love showing this space off. So on the door too, we have this hardware that was on here, so really pretty little rosette kind of detail. I don't know how old it is, but I suspect it's pretty old, but it is just like a charming little detail to the door that we wanted to keep. And right off the dining room is our family room. It is the room we use probably second to most besides the kitchen. And when we were looking at this property, this room was unpainted. It was very dark. The previous owners weren't really using it, but I definitely saw the potential in this space. It is surrounded by all of our gardens. It's south-facing sunlight, so it really has like one of the best views in the house. And of course, we have vaulted ceilings in here as well. And the beams that you see are actually from a Vermont barn that was brought down to this area to go into this sunroom back in the 1980s. And I definitely did not want to paint those beams, but all of the white that you see was like a darker red, like cedar, and I was like, that needs to lighten up a little bit. So somewhat controversial to some people, I decided to paint it White Dove by Benjamin Moore, and wow, what a difference. It has lightened and brightened and made this room feel so light and airy, which was just transformational in itself. But I also got a large sectional for our family, so we sit here, we watch movies together, watch TV together, or just take a nap or rest. It's just a really cozy, like cat nap spot as well with that sun coming in. And we have a couple of different collected pieces as well. So over here, another Brimfield find, this French basket, but kind of the main showstopper of the room, in my opinion, is this blanket hutch here, painted. This was another piece that my mom had collected and used in her previous homes and gifted it to me, and so it now kind of acts as the focal point in the room, and our frame TV sits above it, and I've got my collected books and my plants all in this space. And then here is an ottoman. I was looking for the right size ottoman, something upholstered. I really couldn't find anything that fit in the space so well. So I actually found a inexpensive Wayfair piece. I just loved the turned legs on it, but the fabric wasn't right. So I took it upon myself to do my own reupholstery on it. And so far it's worked out and looks good, but eventually I'd love to do that professionally, get that fixed. But funny story about these. I actually collected these last night on the side of the road in front of our house. But don't they look nice here? I don't know, I like them. The purple's so pretty. And let's see what else. So I also have a big swath of wall here. I put a big tapestry and some candle sconces. I would love to put like a huge hutch piece there one day, but we do have our split AC unit, so that's going to have to wait until I can get that moved. But overall, like winter and summer, everyone always asks, like, do you get hot in this space? Do you get cold in this space with the seasons change? We have a really good temperature control system in here, so we really use this room year round, and it works well. And like I said, you've got beautiful views to the garden. And it's just our main hangout spot, so we're really happy with it. And I have my giant olive tree too, which seems to be pretty happy in this space. It has been here almost 2 years or so. But yeah, it's another great focal point to the room, especially since we have high ceilings. It just keeps growing, 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 and we'll continue to watch it grow. Welcome to the primary bedroom. This is probably my favorite room in the house. I designed it right before we moved in. And let's start with the wallpaper. So the wallpaper is something that I saw on social media probably like 3 years ago. Absolutely fell in love with it, and I knew I needed to use it somewhere, but of course we didn't have this house yet, so I just kind of kept it in the back of my mind. And finally, when we purchased this house, I knew exactly where I wanted to use it, and it is in this space. So I wake up to it every day. Again, it's got the botanical floral print that I absolutely love, and it's just so happy and cheerful to wake up to in the mornings, with the kind of marigold and the blue-green trim color that my husband and I took on and painted. But yeah, this space is just a really cozy room. We've got a fireplace here that is non-functioning. It's very shallow, so I do not trust it, but it is a really great feature in the room. And then we also didn't really know how to orient the bed in the space, especially with the fireplace, but we figured with a really thin profile canopy bed, it would fit really nicely in front of the windows, and sure enough, it worked out really nicely with the fireplace as well. And you will also see here we have my little vintage scallop plates. Again, another scallop edge detail that you'll see. You'll see the scallop edge on my bedding, lampshades. I love scallops. And I also have my dresser, our frame TV, which is great because if you're not familiar with frame TVs, it is just like art hanging on the wall when you're not using it. We do have a secondary entry to the bedroom, which we have pretty much closed off, and now we use it as a little seating area. So this is our little reading nook. I found this chair on Facebook Marketplace, so I love mixing high and low pieces, vintage pieces, antique pieces. So again, you're gonna see that common theme in this house, but it is really just like a cozy little area to hang out. And some other features too. We've got my little basket of flowers, another Facebook Marketplace find. This art, we drove out to Worcester, and it was in some guy's attic, and I thought with the background of the colors and then that pop of purple, it was a really beautiful space, or really beautiful art piece to add to this room. And that is our primary bedroom. I am definitely kind of the lead designer in the family for obvious reasons, but I am so lucky because my husband just is so go with the flow, and luckily we do actually have similar design style tastes, so it makes it super, super easy. And so far my kids are young enough where they haven't given their say quite yet, but I would say for the most part they love their rooms as well, and we'll just continue to build on them as they get older. But yeah, so far my husband has just been go with the flow. He's got his office space, which is his room, and he gets to do it with what he wants with it. But otherwise, he likes what I do. All right, so now we are going to head to my daughter Willow's room. Come with me. So before we actually go to my daughter's room, I wanted to touch on this space a little bit. This is like my little art gallery, which I touched on a little bit downstairs, but you can see I am growing my gallery wall, and I continue to add pieces over time. Of course, we've only lived here 2 years, so I will continue to add and add rather than, I hate bulk buying at like a big box retail store. It's not quite my style, but anyways, I've got pieces here. So a piece that I absolutely love, it was my first big art purchase by Luli Wallace. And again, it's got that cheerful, playful color and feel. So that is the big piece that you see coming up the stairs. And then I also have a Vanessa Cooper piece, which my mom actually gave to me as a gift, and she is a artist from the UK, and again, her art style is very like whimsical. There's always like a little storyline behind the art as well. And then up here, I just purchased these actually last weekend. I got back from Switzerland from visiting my brother and sister-in-law and their son, who's newborn. And I found these little bird porcelain bookends from an antique shop in Switzerland. So I love collecting things. I just thought they were so pretty and fit on these perfectly. And I will continue to display them. They just make me happy when I walk through the space. And then here, again, I'm continuing to build as time goes on, but I just wanted to point out Amy Elizabeth Krebs' art here. She is an awesome artist, definitely check her out, but you can see she focuses on kind of botanicals, and then another thing that I love are bobbin details. So the bobbin frames stole my heart when she showed me those. So I've got that little gallery wall going. All right, so now we'll enter my daughter Willow's room. All right, welcome to Willow's room. She is one lucky little girl. I just finished this space almost. We're still waiting on a green spindle bed with a beautiful Pharaoh and ball green color to it. Didn't make it in here, but that's okay. But this style of the room is definitely a special, it's got kind of that British whimsy that I love so much. And the wallpaper is actually by Liberty, so it definitely fits the theme. And we had the trim painted, the doors painted in a Pharaoh and ball color. Super happy, and she loves the pink. And then one of her favorite colors is blue as well, so I had to incorporate Skylight by Pharaoh and Ball on the ceiling, which is a really pale blue color and picks up on the blues in the wallpaper. But yeah, this bedroom has I love the like little ruffle tops here, and then the stripes, cabana stripe curtains, again, very British. And then lots of like natural accents. We've got this wicker scallop, of course, edging on the mirror. We've got lots of pattern play with the stripes, and then of course the botanical, like little floral berry wallpaper. This is another Vanessa Cooper art piece, again, super cute. And then we have more scallops on the rug. Can't get enough scallops. And then we have this quilt here I just picked up at Brimfield Flea Market in Massachusetts. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's a big flea market that happens 3 times a year in Massachusetts. I try to go at least in the spring and the fall and do my collecting. But I'm excited to add this to the end of her bed once it gets here. And yeah, we've got just such a fun little play space. We used to have her little nursery chair here, but now because she is 3 years old, she now gets her little own play space with her chairs and her dollhouse, and it is her spot for a little bit of quiet time. But I'm really happy with the way that this room turned out, and we'll just continue to build upon it once her bed gets here too. Right now, I haven't been able to design too many children's rooms, but I think they are just so fun. It's where you can really play with pattern and color and really just have fun with it. And so being able to do my daughter's room, because she is just so silly and sassy and sweet, like a Sour Patch Kid, that this room definitely speaks to her personality. And then my son's room too, you'll see in a minute. It's just a little bit more handsome, antiques, that kind of thing. So really kind of going with their different personalities and styles, but it is a lot of fun. I wish I could do more. So Willow is a lucky girl. She gets her own fireplace in her room. It is non-functioning. Again, it's super shallow. I would not trust a fire in a children's room with such a shallow fireplace, but it is a great focal point in the space. And kind of a cool thing, again, this is an old house thing. It's got this little cubby space on the side, so we store, you know, all of her memory box stuff in there, extra clothes. And then up here, we didn't hardwire these lights actually. These are by Pookie US. They actually just came from the US from the UK, they're based there. And these are rechargeable lamps, and so you can either tap the tops or there's a remote to turn them on. So it's just another great light source in here. And then Willow's favorite art, which is a little bit kind of a juxtaposition to the rest of the room, is this gray Malin art, and it has a bunch of different dog breeds around the pool. She loves swimming. She loves coming up and looking at this art and being like, I am like this one, Mommy, you're like this one. But it really pulls, you can see the colors in the space, so it works even though it's a little bit of like a more modern photography. And this here is actually a vintage tea set from my grandmother. So it is stored carefully up here because it is very fragile, but it is a great little piece that adds just to her mantle, and we'll continue to add on as time goes on. Now that we've talked about my daughter Willow's room, we're going to go to my son Theo's room now. Come on. so you are now in my son Theo's room. Theo does get the smaller bedroom, but he doesn't seem to care at all. And this room is really special because it actually has my brother's childhood antique bed. And thankfully my dad saved it for years and years and years. And when it was time, I remembered it and I was like, I would love that bed. Can I have it? And so he brought it up here to Massachusetts from Virginia. And we put it in Theo's room and it works just perfectly. It is a traditional rope bed, so we had to add a little bit of support under there, especially when he loves to jump on the bed. It's probably not the safest, but we're good now. And we just added these little plug-in flush sconce lights. We've got our little Explore flag, and then over here on the wall are some antique game boards, something that my mom, who is also a huge collector, has passed down to me. And so those I think are just like a fun little addition for wall art that go really well with the antique bed. And then this little guy here is another Brimfield find, and it's a recycled newspaper, I guess. It's been twisted up into a dog shape, and the kids have named him Pookie for whatever reason. But he's a fun little addition to his bedroom. And we also have an antique plane hanging from the ceiling. And one other thing that you will learn about me is that I love tramp art. So in the gallery wall in the stairwell, you'll see a lot of tramp art frames. And this is another example of a tramp art frame. And that's another antique piece passed down to me. But yeah, this is a typical boys' room. We've got all of our books and Legos are put away, but you did see Eevee Pokemon. He's a big Pokemon fan, so he still gets his pieces in this space. But it's a cozy little room, and but it packs a punch, so I'm super happy with it, and I think he is too. Okay, so now that we have done the inside of the house, I am going to take you outside and show you our gardens and the stone walls, which is why we named it Stone Wall Gardens. So follow me. So welcome to our outdoor area. Whenever the weather is nice in New England, we love to be outdoors all the time. So we have here this little patio area. This is our fire pit. So we will come out here with the kids and do s'mores. And then after the kids go down, the adults get together and we do cocktails by the fire. So it's a really great little place. We have our string light, so it's cozy in the evening. And then over here, we have our alfresco dining area. And this is another favorite spot of mine. I love eating outside. The kids love eating outside. They're always asking, let's eat outside. And so we have our wicker chairs and then our teak table. And I just love the green and white striped umbrella. Simple Target find. Everyone's like, where did you get that? Honestly, it was so inexpensive, but it's so cute in this space. And you can see like all of our patio area has this stone wall here, so part of the stone wall gardens. And I just learned actually from a previous homeowner that had lived here for 30 years that the owner before them had a somewhat famous Italian masonry build this whole wall back in like the 50s, I think. And they were super proud of having him build their wall because apparently he is pretty talented. But it has done really well over the years, and I just love how the moss grows on it and just adds another element to our garden space. And then over here we have all our flower beds that we continue to add on. My last home did not have a lot of sunshine in the flower bed, so I am in heaven here. I get to plant all the sun-loving plants here. So in the spring, you guys just missed all the irises were blooming, all the peonies were blooming. It was absolutely gorgeous, but now we're into the summer flowers. So it's gonna be just as good as we continue to grow. We've got our lavender. And then this is another secondary seating area. Just another place where we can gather with cheese and wine, hang out with the kids, and then our sunshades as well, if we want to do a little sunbathing. So this is kind of our immediate patio outdoor area.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Danika Herrick. Welcome to my house on the North Shore of Boston.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Danika Herrick. I'm an artist and I design fabric and wallpaper, and I'm also a former interior designer. You are in my home here on the North Shore of Boston. My husband and I like to go antiquing and collect stuff, and I'm also an avid DIYer, so I will constantly be painting something and redoing something or reupholstering something. But it's just years of our kind of collected mess. So welcome to my entry. So when you walk in, we kind of have just a lot of random things. Like my husband used to, when he first started off, was a sign maker, so he collects signs. So we have the donut when you walk in. And then when you come through here, since I design wallpaper, my house has become my studio and my showroom. I test everything here. When I design stuff, I usually will do a room up. So things are constantly changing in here. But this room is the sitting room, and this has the Courtney stripe on grass cloth, and then the Elsie's garden in here, but that will change. And then this is the Kirsten on the chairs. And ironically, both my sisters are in this room. So the Courtney is one sister, Kirsten's the other. So I name my patterns after people I know and just names that I like. This room is just kind of like a cozy little nook, no TV, just to read, have cocktails. This entire piece is just filled with plates. I am a plate collector. So this is where my blue and whites and greens live. This is probably the oldest piece that we have. This is from our first house. We got married 20 years ago, and it has been painted about 20 times. Now over here, I like old and random pieces, but these were, again, more auction pieces of a hunt scene, and I just liked this old dog piece, even though it's ripped up, but I love the frame on it. And then this is probably one of my favorite pieces. I got this cat when I was down at Green Chair. It was a charity in North Carolina, and they have a charity shop that they used to raise money, but I just loved him, so he came home with me. And that's kind of the story of most pieces in my house. These chairs are really fun. I got these at an antique store in Newburyport, and they were crushed red velvet. It looked like Santa's suit when I got them, but they're actually, the name is, I think they're Pearson chairs, but I had them upholstered. But these, we've had them probably for like 15 years, but they're just super comfortable. And when our kids were little, they would basically just have so much fun spinning their friends in them. But yeah, these are some of these are another of my favorite pieces. On this wall, I have, this is a placemat. It's one of the original ones from 1945 from Louise Kenyon, who was one of the Folly Cove designers. And they were based right north of here in Rockport, about 15 minutes away. And they were a group of printmakers, this group of women that started making prints. And Schumacher now has a few of their patterns as wallpaper. But I just fell in love with this and the simplicity of it. And this I got up in Gloucester at an auction. And then Jenny Andrews painted that piece. And then over here, this little table I love. This just a little like fake book door, but I really thought it was a cute little piece. So the pattern on these drapes is the Elsie's garden. And I designed this because I wanted a really large branching chinoiserie feel. So, and then I kind of custom colored it to work in here because that's what I do. So all my designs, I love that I could custom color and make whatever anyone wants. So, and then I kind of put it on a tone-on-tone silhouette, the Courtney stripe, and that just kind of, there is a lot of pattern in my house. My entire house is tons of like pattern on pattern on pattern, but I really love to be able to mix up and layer, and it's a lot to look at, but you have to kind of take it and like take it apart and like kind of study each one individually, but they all kind of work together, and that's one of my favorite things about designing patterns. So my husband is a realtor, and I was a former interior designer. And before we bought this house, I think we lived in about 7 houses because we'd constantly be buying a house, fixing it up, moving on to the next. 7 years ago, We actually lived right around the corner, and this house came on the market. My husband had emailed it to me and said, let's go look at this. So we got here to it was a big open house, and he goes, don't look at the house, just go straight to the backyard. And I was like, but I need to check the rooms. But he's like, no, just go out to the backyard. And this house, we picked it for location. It's overlooks the Salem Harbor, and we have a lighthouse in our backyard. So this is like the best house for the summer. We love this place. And so we have been here for 7 years and slowly working on making it ours. All right, let's go into the living room. This room, we wanted to feel moodier. We painted the ceiling blue. We hang out in here, and in the winter, we have the fireplace going. This is where everyone hangs out, watches TV. So this room, we just wanted to feel cozy, but it had this huge cathedral ceiling, and it used to be white and a textured ceiling, which was just lovely. So we smoothed everything over, painted it blue, and it definitely helped to envelop you into the space. So starting off in this room, I found this lamp at an antique store, I think up in New Hampshire, and I just loved it. I call it like, it kind of feels like a lamp cactus, but I loved the blue and how it kind of played off. It kind of, it's a more mid-century piece, which I love, but it kind of lightens up all the antiques. Now, again, with my husband, with being a sign maker, if you look at this room, you'll see he just collects signs, but that was the original sign from when he had his first business. And he was a sign maker at first, and then he went into real estate. So he made his own sign and started his own real estate company, and that was it. And that was, so that's kind of, now it's Herrick and Company, because this is where we all gather, and this is where the company is. So in this room, again, there's more, like I have more of my patterns that I just keep making pillows and trying out stuff. So they're ever changing. And then the colors in this room, at first I wanted to keep it neutral, so I can kind of keep changing things out. But I fell in love with this rug and the warmth of adding that little bit of rust into it. So it kind of became the launching pad for everything that I do. And like when I am colorizing patterns, I'm trying to work it into this rug. So this now, with the blues, the rust, the browns, and then there's even a little bit of greens in here. This is the table. I love this table. I think it's a John Dickinson style table. It's a metal, and I wound up, it was really rusted and in tough shape, so I kind of just gave it a whitewash, because it had a faint whitewash on it, and we striped it, and it's just to tie in the armchairs. I got these armchairs at a local consignment shop here. The fireplace, we renovated this room about 5 years ago. There used to be a step down sunken room off of it with two doors that actually were exterior doors, because there used to be a patio outside, and they put an addition on, the former owners. So we raised the floor up and we opened up and arched the space and kind of fixed up the mantle because it was in rough shape. So here I used to be a decorative artist, so I faux painted the marble onto the hearth, and I collect disco balls. So you're gonna see disco balls on a lot of spaces in here. So we just wanted to have it be a little bit cleaner and simpler, because it was very, this house was built in 95, so it was a very 95 colonial looking mantle. So we just beefed it up, and it's a two-way, it goes through to the next room. So we have this thing going all winter. When I see a painting, I will just buy it, and I will say I will find a home for it. So I have these two I really like together. This was actually this is a photocopy of my grandfather's business sign. It was Andy's Auto Repair, but my mom blew that up for me, and we framed it and put it in here. This is an old Chesterfield, but it is the most comfortable couch. You just sink into it. It's really, really soft. And I was going to get it reupholstered, but it's in such pristine shape. This came out of an estate sale, I think, down in Connecticut. And I just loved it, because to find a really comfy couch is great. So the coffee table is another piece that was found at an auction. There with this, we made a nice big floral arrangement. I love fresh flowers. I try to have them as often as possible, and when I take you out to the gardens, I love to grow. Peony season just ended, but I love to grow flowers and constantly just be able to go out and cut and bring them into the house, because it definitely gives your room life and it makes it feel a little friendlier and softer. In this house, you're going to see a lot of pieces that I've found through auctions. We have a great auction house, Kaminsky Auction here in town, and I am constantly online doing auctions or going to an auction house, but some of my favorite pieces are from the auction, so I'm excited to show you guys those. Now I'm going to take you into the dining room. This dining room is very multifunctional because I'm an artist and because I'm designing and painting patterns all the time, I actually use this room as more of a studio because it has the best light in the house. It's south facing, it's all windows. The center of this room is this table, which is a work in progress currently, but this table has a very special, and it's a special meaning. It was built by my father for our wedding present. And when we got married in Salem, Massachusetts. Since my husband is in real estate and does a lot of development, he had bought a house on the Salem Common and he was making it into condos. And before they started demolition, we decided to throw a wedding party. We had eloped, but we threw a party afterwards. And it was in October, in Halloween in Salem. So we just made it a big costume party. And the house was it's a beautiful Georgian house. And the moldings, everything in it were gorgeous. So we're like, the house was in great shape. Let's throw a party. So this table was actually made from the floorboards on the first floor. The floor was hickory, and I don't know if you can tell, but some of the boards were 30 inches wide. They had to be replaced because of structural issues in the house. So my father took the floorboards, because this is where our dance floor for when we had our party was, for our wedding party, and he built us a table for a wedding present out of the floorboards from the house we got our wedding party in. So it's kind of special, and right now it's currently, I've been working on painting the Salem Harbor, and it's in process, but having all the houses that we've lived in, since we've lived in probably a total of 10 together, and all the areas that are special for us, painted onto this table. So this is just the beginning of it, but yeah, we're here. We have a lighthouse right behind our house. So I have not painted the house yet. That's our old house around the corner and another house we lived in up the street. But we have the lighthouse right out of here. So this room actually has the best views. There's a beach across the street and the harbor right in front of us. I wallpapered this room with the Big Ben ticking stripe that I made. And I thought this would be a great room to tent because of the shape and the size. I regretted that once I started wallpapering because I had no idea what I took on. But this was definitely very challenging, getting all the stripes to line up and feel like it's one big tented space. And I think I needed a chiropractor because this took about a week, and my neck from looking up was so sore. But I absolutely love it. And it now just kind of feels like you're walking into a big tented space. The chandelier was originally black. It was a basic chandelier that we had bought when we first moved in, and it used to hang in the blue room right off here. And I switched it around, and I took brass, sheets of brass, and I found these stars online, and I created more of it looks like kind of fireworks. So I just kind of created a ruffled sleeve out of brass, and I cut the brass into the little ruffles and attached it and put the stars on wire, pieces of brass wire to kind of create the effect. And I painted it gold. So that was one of my DIYs. And then the other thing too is that in this room, I designed the woodlands pattern on the chairs, and they're just little slipcovers. These are old embroidered shield back chairs. But I put the woodlands pattern on here, and then to kind of tie it in, I actually created a thick banding. I braided it and I had stuffed I made big long rolls of fabric, like kind of little sausages, and I would basically braided, I forget how many yards it took, but it was, wrapping the cotton and then braiding it and then attaching it to because I wanted to have a little bit more of a three-dimensional trim on this instead of a flat one. So that was another little project. This house is just constantly changing. I'm sure these will change in a year or two because I'll get a new pattern and a new idea. My favorite space in this house is the backyard. But going inside, my favorite space is now the kitchen. We just finished a renovation. It was a big undertaking, but it was inspired from a tile floor from one of our favorite restaurants in Boston. And it kind of grew from there. So that is now my new favorite space. Before that, I would have to have said it was my office because I am in there basically like 12 hours a day. So that that room I had made very kind of cozy because I spent so much time in it. All right, now we're gonna go to the kitchen, which we just remodeled. This kitchen was originally inspired by floors from a restaurant in Boston, Contessa, that we love to go to. They had little 6-inch squares, and I was like, I was originally gonna paint this floor, and I was not gonna renovate the kitchen. I was just gonna change out our old island. But things quickly unravel when you decide to do any sort of renovation or remodel projects. So what started off was, we're just gonna paint the floors, do the counters, and then we realized our old cabinets were not in the greatest shape, and we were just gonna paint them, but then we're like, let's get new cabinets, which quickly turned into, let's remove a wall. So right along here is where there used to be the sink, and there was a doorway and a little window, which drove me crazy because you'd be washing dishes looking out of a rectangular opening, which I hated. So that wall was the first thing to go. And it made a huge difference because it really just kind of connected everything. And I love this space now. So then it went from being painted floors. We had to rip out the hardwood because of some issues we had. So we just went for it and did 14 different types of marble on the floor here. And this was quite the undertaking. It took about 3 weeks to finish, actually more than that. But the problem is the pickets. I was like, great, we found pickets that will work. We don't have to cut anything. Then we got 12 by 12 tiles. The pickets were all, perfect. Everything matched up until we found out that the pickets had been discontinued. So we needed 425. 300 was available. And so it took about a week. The poor tile guy had to cut everything. And that took about a week to cut all the pickets and to get everything to fit. So that kind of held up the job a little bit, but in the end, I'm so happy. And we have like the Buchanans did our floors, and they were amazing because I had to create a map, and I still have it somewhere, but it's a map showing, and I lettered every one of these 14 different type of marbles, and they had to go through and painstakingly check off because it got so confusing because some of these look very similar to another. Like there's 2 different shades of terracotta, there's 2 different shades of the kind of a mint green, and even the browns, those are 2 different types of browns. So I know I drove them crazy, but they did an unbelievable job, and I absolutely feel like this is now makes the space. And so after opening up the kitchen, I used to have an island that was like a high-low island, and it drove me nuts because you were just always, one side always just collected junk. And I didn't have enough space to really lay stuff out and work, so I wanted just one flat, larger island. And then we flip-flopped our sink and our stove. Our sink used to be, there was a sink here and the cooktop was here. I like it much better this way because I just like to be able to have the sink kind of central to be able to look outside. And then I went with an Arabescato marble, which I loved. I wanted some movement, and this definitely gave me that. And it's just so pretty. We put in the brass cafe shelves, and these are on, when we pulled one of the colors from the marble, into the backsplash tile. So the funny story about this is this I was not planning to have so much pink in this kitchen, but I actually love it. When I had bought the bar stools online and I had bought my lights, they were supposed to be the color of this more like soft peachy pink on the floor. When they came in, those chairs first, they were very, very pink. And then when these arrived, they were pink. So I was like, it's meant to be, we're gonna go with it. But I'm the only, I have a house full of men, a husband and 2 sons, so I'm the only girl, and I don't get to put my pink in as much as I want to, so this is my touch. And I absolutely love it. So this, we put in a brass rail, foot rail. We painted the island a shade of green to kind of ground it, and then we wallpapered the area over the center of the island. And just because I overdo pattern, and I'm a pattern girl. So, and I love to paper. I have paper on the majority of the ceilings in my house. And then over here, this table this table I did in 2017. This was an IKEA Doxa table. That was just the basic white table. I painted it with a shagreen pattern, and this took about 2 weeks to paint. And I remember we had a little tiny, when we had the wall here, we had a little TV, and I had watched, I never watched Vanderpump Rules, but I watched all 7 seasons, and that was my Bravo induction. Now I'm just a Housewives junkie. So, but this took 2 weeks to do, and it's now, I'm like, this is a family heirloom, it's gonna get passed down. And so I've polyed it, and I've protected it, and I also gold leaf the base so that it's a little bit fancier now with our fancier kitchen. The chairs are Ward Bennett chairs that we found at an antique shop. It's the original mohair. They actually, I think they came out of Harvard when they renovated one of the buildings. And then I just took the finish off because the finish was very a real orange shellac, and I did not like it. So I just took off. These are just raw right now. I do have plans just to wax them eventually. And then this light fixture was this mid-century fixture. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. But I added a little pop of pink, and I took rose quartz orbs, and I ground them down on a belt sander so they'd have a flat edge, and attached them to the sides of the piece, just in between the light bulbs, just to kind of tie it into all the other pink. And then this is one of my patterns. This is the Fairfield stripe on the windows, just to kind of tie some of the blue in. We have so many colors going on in the floor that you could kind of pull from anything in here, and you really miss. Coming down this way, we just put all pantry, appliance garages behind the doors here. And on that side, I didn't want to have any upper cabinets over there. After having a kitchen that felt so closed in with so many uppers and so many walls, I just wanted to have it feel nice and open. So in here, we just did one wall of cabinets. One other thing that I love in here, because my grandparents were real, I would spend summers with them, my Emma and Andy Yagnasak, my grandparents, and I have such fond memories of they had a lake house in New Jersey, so we would spend our summers with them. But this was a clock that was in the basement, and as kids, we'd go to Grandma and Grandpa's, and the kids would all hang out in the basement. So this clock it was theirs, and I kind of paired it with I found this little planter tin, wall hanger tin, and I love it. I always stick an orchid in it, and it kind of travels around the house depending upon the orchid. So, and then over here, this was a painting by my grandmother. And then this is a Janet Bolton quilted piece that I liked. I just thought it was sweet. So they worked well together. And now right off the kitchen is a powder room. And this was one of my earlier wallpaper designs. Come on in. So this is a mural I created called the Citrus Garden Mural. And it is just lemon and orange trees. But I wanted to do, since I love blue and white, I went and did a complete blue and white in here. I just wanted it to feel cozy and enclosed when you come in. So this is your little blue and white pop off the kitchen. So how I got from interior designer to fabric wallpaper designer, I've worn a lot of hats throughout my life. I went to school for bio and quickly, day one, dropped that major. I'd always been very creative, done a lot of art, but I never seriously thought about studying art because I thought I'd be a starving artist and I needed to get a job that would pay bills. So I eventually had to take an art elective, and I was like, why am I not doing this? This is what I love doing. So lo and behold, I also worked as an apprentice doing decorative painting when I was in New York at a school. And I fell in love with interiors because I was painting the walls, the floors, murals, even like I was painting things on their fabric. And that led me to go back to school for interior design, where I've moved to Boston, and I worked as an interior designer for 20 years. During that time, I had a design blog, had a fretwork company, and I also had to reteach myself Illustrator. And I started to figure out how to design pattern repeats. And I was able to figure out how to take my artwork and put that into fabric and wallpaper and make it into repeats. So that quickly took off for me. I started posting things on Spoonflower, and within like 4 years, it became like a real job. And then when the pandemic hit, I had finished a large commercial interior design project, and I just like realized I can't go into people's homes. What am I gonna do? And at that time, everyone was online, and the fabric and wallpaper went crazy because people couldn't shop in a store. And I just said, I'm gonna focus on just this and see how it goes during this time. And within that first year, it really took off even more. And I decided to quit my day job and just do surface pattern design. Now let's go over to my office. So this is my office. I spend, like I said, most of my time in here. I work from home. I know I should get an office and a physical space outside the house, but I love being able to just, when the whim strikes, design a pattern, or if I could get up at 6 in the morning and just sit down with my coffee and start working. So in here, I wanted this to feel really cozy since I spend so much time in here. And so I used the Walter ticking stripe, and I wallpapered the ceiling, the walls, inside the bookcase with the ticking stripe. I even did the skirting around my desk and then my printer area in it. And then I trimmed it in a cranberry grosgrain ribbon. And then I paired it with the Ophelia pattern in a cranberry maroon over here on the drapes with a James stripe along the banding. So I honestly, most of my designs, I just design what I want in my house a lot of the time, sadly. So that's where most of them come from. And I also have so many customers that will reach out and be like, hey, can you change this color? Can you move this around? So it's great because sometimes you just get stuck in what you like and what you like to do. So I love when people like have a custom or they need me to do something that's out of my box that I live in here. So because it kind of opens my eyes and lets me think in a different color palette or in a different scale. So in my office, this is my main workspace here. I have 2 computers. I work on Photoshop. I paint everything by hand. I then scan it in or photograph it and then work on it on the large computer and get it into repeats, do all my colorizing. And then over here is my big mood board where I'm always kind of playing and testing out patterns and scale to see what's working. Or just to kind of see, all right, I forgot about this pattern, let's mix it with this. So it's kind of like a nice little area to play. And then I have the bookcase. This room, when we bought the house, didn't do much in here as far as structurally. The bookcase and the desk were in here. It was their home office. But since it was white and I had the very vintage 90s, it looked like Saved by the Bell. It was like pink, teal, and seafoam. like splattered wallpaper. So that quickly changed. The house was very green, pink, and peach when we moved in. So we've been like slowly making it into ours. So in here, I painted the cabinets they've been a few colors, but this is the latest. This is a nice deep cranberry red. I just kind of, all the things over time that I collect, and it kind of moves around. But I love my blue and white, and then I just kind of blend things together. I have all my books for inspiration in here, and just some more little framed art pieces that I've picked up over time. Made a little pleated lampshade, and I really liked the salvaged edge on it, so I kept that. And then I painted the floor. That's another project. So this was a hardwood floor, but it was, you know, when we first moved in, all the floors were very orangey oak. So I painted this one just to kind of neutralize it. Since I'm always, like, I love blue and white, it's my neutral, so this floor became blue and white, and everything kind of works off of it. And then, what else is in here? These are really old cabinets that I've had for several houses, but they are great flat storage for all. This is where I store, like, all of my original artwork is going to be in here, and it's just great for storing and all my color maps. So I probably need to get a new one because this one's beat up pretty badly, but it is a workhorse. And then the top, we just finished it by kind of banding it off with the grosgrain ribbon and popping a starlight in the middle to kind of like the cherry on top. All right, now let's go to the primary suite, which is right down here off my office. In the primary suite, there's a little funny story. When we first moved in, there was hunter green carpets. The previous owners, they loved hunter green and peach and pink, and there was a lot of it. So everything in here was hunter green and then big poofy pink. I call them prom dress stripes. So that was the first thing to go, and we kind of neutralized it and lived with it. And over time, this room still is not finished, but it's like we just kind of slowly decorate and let it unfold over time. So in here, I love my blue, so this has got a nice, soft, restful blue. It has grass cloth on the back wall, and it's paint on the walls. And this piece right here, this sculptural etagere piece, I think it is, it's here right now. I think eventually it's going to go to our living room. And then in here, I wanted it just to be kind of quiet, soft, and restful. So one of my first patterns was the Emma stripe, and so this is on the Roman shades. And I've been just mixing in. So there was this is, I think, the Brent, this is the Pearls Bouquet, and then this is a new one, the Water Marbled Fanfare, and then the Brush Weaves Plaid. So we've kind of just keep mixing in patterns, and these are new. So I kind of swap things out as I come up with new patterns. I'll just recolor it to kind of work in my current color scheme. And then this is, when you go outside, you'll see I actually hand blocked all of my outdoor pillows, but I scanned it and turned it into a print that I sell that is actually made as a 24-inch pillow. So you could just cut the squares, sew them together, and either put an 18-inch pillow with a flange or do a big 24-inch pillow with a banded edge. Since, again, we have really big cathedral ceilings in here, there was a ceiling fan. And it was the debate, like, my husband loves the ceiling fan. So we have one, he won out in the living room, but I was like, the ceiling fan wasn't doing it for me. And we have air conditioning, so, and it doesn't really get that hot here, despite today, but it's usually pretty breezy here on the water. So we just chose a giant fixture. This was, when we moved in 2017, we put this one up. And it kind of just fills the space and brings the height down a little bit. The nightstands were auction finds. The veneer was not in the greatest shape, so I wound up puttying and painting them. I just love how simple and clean the lines are, and I like the hardware, just a little simple pulls on there. Then this dresser over here was another piece that we had that we just painted some stripes on to, I think eventually I have plans for putting something a little bit better for having the TV and to have it hidden away, but we haven't gotten to that project just yet. Okay, let me take you into the primary bathroom. This room is it's on the list to be remodeled, but we've just been, I kind of say, I just put wallpaper on it and make it look a little prettier. But so there's a lot of like dark black and green marble in here that came with the house that we've been living with, because we have plans to kind of update this and do a few other things in here. But in the meantime, I did put a new vanity top on, and I created, just like last month, I took my normal heat wave pattern and I scaled it up by 3 times because of a customer had requested, they're like, can you make this bigger? And I'm like, sure. And I loved it, so it went into here, and I just kind of feel like it's like a huge faux bois. It gives you movement, and it's quiet too. So this room has the giant supersized heat wave. So this was a picture of my husband, his parents gave him. And it's kind of fun. The joke is, if you have to use the toilet, you kind of feel like you're going sideways with the boat here. The other fun feature is this house came with a telephone next to the toilet. We haven't gotten rid of that yet during the renovation, but it's just it's pretty funny if you need to make a call. Now I'm going to take you upstairs to the guest room and the studio. The guest room, we call this Ashley's room. It's my niece Ashley, and she lives in Charleston, and she comes up and visits all the time, so she sleeps in this the most. So a few Thanksgivings ago, Ashley and I wallpapered this room, and this is the Pearls Bouquet. So up here it was just light and airy, soft blues and greens again, my favorites, and we kind of mixed in. This is the heat wave again that was in my bathroom, but regular scale. And we have the Amelia and the Ashley lattice and the Veronica and the buffalo plaid in here, as well as just a cabana stripe on the curtains. But this room, all the rooms on the second floor have great views because we're on a little peninsula, so you kind of have like 270-degree water views, and you have the lighthouse out the window here. So, and it gets really great sunrises and sunsets here too. So over here, these are just some chairs that I had slip covered, and I created I have a striped star pattern where I cut the stripe off and I attached that for banding on the chairs. And this is just another, I found this at a estate sale, this little bench, as well as the bird house. This was an old Salvation Army find of mine. This dresser, I just kind of like to mix in the mid-century with the antiques. This old pine yard sale dresser. And then the whole point of this room is just, the guests, you just want them to feel like at peace. I didn't want to make it too busy. Well, it is very busy with a lot of pattern, but I want it just to feel kind of quiet and the colors to be a little softer and more restful in here. All right, now I'm going to take you down the hall to the studio. It's basically the sewing studio and where I keep all my supplies. This room was done a few years back, and I started off with the painted floor and the grass cloth. I put the tulip stripe. This was actually, my kids have moved their rooms around, but this was actually my oldest son's room when he first moved in. He moved across the hall. I decided to take this because having my business at home, I've kind of taken over several rooms in the house, and my sewing and fabric needed a place because I have so much fabric. And I'm always sewing curtains or pillows or making samples. So here is the sewing table. And then behind me, this was the closet that I took over and used this to have, I keep all my fabric down underneath. I paint my nails up here. I mean, this is kind of like my little space, but this has all of my supplies for block carving and painting, and keep my fabric and sewing machines over there. But I love having a space that's just kind of, we have multifunctional spaces, but this one, it's just nice and restful and quiet up here. And And then when I have really big projects, I take it to the dining room table, because that table, my dad designed it. He actually created it to fit a bolt of fabric. So it's 54 inches long and it's 54 inches wide by 8 feet long. So I can make drapes on that one. So, and then there's also, this was a wedding present from my mom and my dad. And this was a little IKEA hack over here. This was just an IKEA console. It was the Billy, I think it was the Billy bookcase, or not the Billy, the one that had the cube, the cubbies. So I painted it to look like faux burl wood, and then had doors made and added them on so that they can just hide things and fold up. I put the rattan in the back side of them. And that's just, it has tons of storage in this room. And then there's also a little twin-sized bed. If we ever have multiple guests, someone could stay in, we call it the princess room because it has a little canopy. But it's just we kind of created this little nook because of the eaves, and it fit a twin-sized bed. We added some fabric just to kind of hide, because it doesn't go straight up there. There's a weird second slant there, so the fabric kind of hides the strange architecture. But overall, this is just it's like my second office. And now for my favorite part of the house, the reason why we bought it is the backyard. Let me show you. You're greeted by the Hospital Point Lighthouse in our backyard and the Salem Harbor. And we have a pool too, so we are out here all summer. And we have a little sitting area over here. My husband loves old signs. This is his Coke machine. This Coke machine's made it, I think, through like 5 houses. We've had this since we lived in Salem. And it works. So it's a great little, it's a fun little conversation piece. In the backyard, so we have the fire pit that came with the house. And I guess the folks that lived here before, there was a hot tub here that they replaced and they put the fire pit, but it was made from a piece of the Longfellow Bridge. They carved a piece of granite out for the fire pit. And then all of the chairs here, these were my grandparents', they're old Woodard pieces. So these were all this is actually basement, like the rumpus room furniture. And I brought it outside because I loved it, and it reminds me of hanging out at my grandparents'. Now over here is where we kind of have our summer relaxation area here. Last summer I decided I was going to paint my umbrellas, and I block printed 3 umbrellas and I added some fringe trim to them. And I also did all of the pillows around the fire pit as well. And then I kind of turned those block prints into patterns that I sell on Spoonflower. But that was all these little undertakings. I'm always working on something. So the house never looks this clean. It's usually there's a project going on in some room. Now, then over here, the pool came with the house. We were really lucky. So when my husband said, go out to the backyard, I was like, wow, this is here? Because I never knew this was here walking by this house. And you get such great views. Since you're up high, we have a beach across the street over there. And then Salem Harbor, and that's Marblehead across the way, and then the lighthouse right here. And I like how the yard is kind of broken up into levels. I have my gardens down below, and I also have gardens in the back as well. But it's such a great space, and it's so relaxing. And we hang out here. This is where we are most of the time. And then in the winter, that's when we're really using the house. But yeah, we kind of joke around, and they're like, we do staycation. We call it Hotel Herrick. Home to me means a space that I can gather with my friends and family. So really just being able to have the energy and the conversations and friends and family around you and enjoying your space that you kind of curated over time is really what home means to me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.